Millionaire speaks out after hearing little girl's desperate cry. It's too hot at 3 a.m. in the small town of Maplewood, where shadows stretch long and deep in the night. The silence was suddenly shattered. At precisely 3 a.m., a haunting cry broke the stillness, echoing through the darkness like an alarm bell ringing out for help. It's too hot. A little girl's voice pierced the air.
Who was she?
Where was she? The chilling urgency of her tones sent icicles of fear through anyone who heard it. Even the millionaire residing in the grand mansion just up the hill, known for his impenetrable walls and endless wealth, was jolted from his sleep by this ghostly wail that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. As he swung his legs over the side of the bed, a wave of unease washed over him. The night was stifling, oppressive, and thick. He could feel beads of sweat forming on his forehead, a harsh reminder that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the heat, it was the feeling of something lurking in the air, something that might just pull him from the comfort of his cushioned haven. He strained to listen, heart racing, hoping to catch another sound, desperate for answers. The town had been buzzing for weeks now, tales of bizarre occurrences swirling like the midsummer breeze. Lights flickering in the abandoned school, whispering winds that seemed to carry secrets, and now this chilling scream from a child. As he stood there in his expensive silk pajamas, trembling slightly, he could almost imagine the girl, her small form lost in the night, crying out for someone to save her. Why did it feel like the shadows were closing in around him? What unseen force had compelled this innocent voice to call for help at such an ungodly hour? He took a deep breath, stepping toward the window, the air thick with tension. A swirling storm brewed inside him, fueled by curiosity and dread. What was waiting for him out there? The sound echoed in his mind. Could it be some kind of trick? Or was it genuine? A desperate plea for help? He had to know. He had to act. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With a forced resolve, he threw on a robe and stepped into the night, each step crunching on the gravel like thunder. The air outside was alive, pulsating with unnatural energy. It felt almost alive. The moon hung overhead, a glaring eye watching him closely. He could see the thick trees lining the path, their branches swaying almost eagerly, as if they were beckoning him forward. It was then that he noticed something out of the corner of his eye, a flicker of pale light deep in the woods, beckoning him into the darkness. His heart raced. Was it the little girl? Or was it a trap? He stood frozen, words unspoken, the tantalizing possibility of discovering the truth hanging heavy in the air. Just as he made his mind up to turn around, that haunting little voice rang out again, sharper this time. Please, it's too hot. What lay ahead in the shadows? Would he step forward into the unknown, or retreat back to the safety of his mansion? The silence returned, heavy and thick. Who was this girl, and what had made her call for help in such a desperate hour? Only one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. He took a deep breath, bracing himself for whatever waited in the depths of the night. He could feel the weight in the air press against him, almost suffocating. But with each pulse of the unseen energy around him, his fear began to twist into resolve. He stepped off the path and into the murky underbrush, the branches snapping beneath his feet like the cracking of thin ice. The flickering light grew brighter, calling him deeper into the shadows. The night was eerily still, the sounds of the world around him swallowed by the looming darkness. Thoughts raced through his mind. Was this girl lost? How could he help someone he hadn't even seen? The familiar ache of doing nothing gnawed at him. What if something terrible is happening? He muttered under his breath, the sound hanging in the air like a ghost. Ahead, the flicker broadened, becoming a soft glow that illuminated the outline of a clearing nestled between the trees. It was beautiful and disorienting in its strangeness. What familiar shape was this? As he stepped closer, dread clawed at his insides. A feeling deep within him whispered that something wasn't right. "Who's there?" he called out, voice trembling. Silence fell around him, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Then, as if in answer, the girl's voice cried out again, "It's too hot. Please." There was desperation in her tone, pure, unfiltered panic. He broke into a brisk walk, veering toward the figure he now saw in the center of the clearing. The girl stood there, hair shimmering like gold under the moonlight, her eyes wide and scared. But as he got closer, his heart plummeted. The area around her felt wrong. The shadows were too long. The air shimmered, twisted, like a mirage. "Are you okay?" he said, reaching out with a trembling hand, but as he stood before her, a chill engulfed him. The little girl didn't seem real, and with each breath, her form flicked and fluttered like a candle flame caught in a draft. "It's too hot," she repeated, but the words echoed differently, no longer a plea, but a warning. The ground beneath him began to tremble. Panic surged within him, an animal instinct screaming to run, yet he couldn't move. The girl's presence was magnetic, yet unnerving, locking him in place. Then, without warning, she pointed to the woods behind him, her eyes filled with fear. "You have to go. They're coming." A wave of icy dread washed over him as whispers filled the air, voices shambling from the depths of the forest, low and guttural. The movie-like experience swirling around him felt all too real, pulling him in like a whirlwind. He turned to look back, heart pounding in his chest. Shadows hunched beneath the canopy, shifting and darkening, surging forward like an unstoppable tide. "Run!" the girl screamed, her form flickering more violently now, as if she were fighting against the grip of whatever dark presence loomed behind him. Fear cracked through his paralysis, and he sprinted into the night, blood pounding in his ears. But the whispers echoed louder, mingling with his racing thoughts. What have I stumbled into? What does it mean? He could feel the heat of something behind him, a glowing menace, urging him onward, deeper into the woods, into the darkness that swallowed everything in its path. But just as he felt the branches scrape against his skin, the girl's voice rang in his ears one last time, low and haunting. "Don't forget me what was happening?" Who was this girl? And what was pursuing him through the dark? He had to find out, to make a choice that would change everything. The night had only just begun. The ground trembled beneath his feet as he ran, the spiraling darkness around him thick and unforgiving. Each step felt like it was pulling him deeper into a nightmare of his own making. He could almost feel the heat pursuing him, a palpable energy crackling at his heels. The girl's frantic plea echoed in his mind, a chilling reminder of the urgency that lay behind him. Branches clawed at his sides, tugged at his clothes as he wove through the trees, heart racing like a wild animal trapped in a cage. Breath came in sharp gasps, every intake laced with panic. What was that? He nearly tripped over a gnarled root, the floor of the forest a familiar enemy now. It threatened to ground him, to hold him back. He stumbled into a larger clearing, moonlight spilling onto the ground, breaking the oppressive darkness. In that moment, he risked a glance back, trying to gauge how far that looming threat had come. But all he saw were shadows dancing among the trunks, twisting and heaving a vile play. The whispers grew louder, merging with a rancid stench that clawed at the back of his throat. The air felt thick like molasses, almost alive, wrapping around him, pulling at his resolve. He couldn't shake the image of the girl, flickering like a dying light. What did she mean? "Don't forget me." What were those shadows really chasing him for? Suddenly, he felt more than just hunted. It was personal. As if he had stumbled upon something ancient, something that had been waiting. A sudden rustle snapped his focus, drawing him back. A massive silhouette emerged from the darkness, its shape more monster than man, advantageously obscured by the night. A cruel, gnarled face turned towards him, mouth twisting into a grotesque smile. "You can't run forever," it hissed, the voice smooth and chilling. He turned, adrenaline surging. There had to be a way out. He would not let that thing catch him. Should he keep running or try to fight? Instinct took over, and he soared forward, every muscle screaming in protest. Each step felt heavy and unsure, but the shadows weren't just chasing him. They were closing in. They began to flicker on the edges of his vision, tugging at him, pulling closer. He pushed on, driven by raw fear, searching for a sign, any glimpse of sanctuary. In this madness, clarity struck him. What if he wasn't meant to leave? What if there was something he needed to face? Suddenly, memories he never knew he had surged forth. Flickers of laughter, warmth of sunlight, familiar faces cast into uncertainty. It was overwhelming. The girl. He shouted into the darkness, as if conjuring her image could summon a flicker of hope, and then he heard it, a soft whisper that cut through the chaos like daylight. "Find me." The voice was gentle yet firm, a beacon in the consuming night. He stopped, breath hitching in his throat. Where was she? How could she be here when they were both enveloped by this horror? Deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was tied to this place, to the shadows. With trembling resolve, he turned and took a breath, willing himself to find her. Just as he set off again, the darkness around him quaked in response. A cacophony of howls echoed from all directions as his heart pounded in sync with the monstrous rhythm of the forest. "Who are you?" A voice reverberated through the air, chilling him to his core. Each word seemed to open the ground beneath him, shifting the very fabric of reality. "How am I supposed to save her?" he cried, but tangled emotions surged through him. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and then, in the stillness, the shadows dropped, revealing an ancient altar at the center of the clearing. The girl's shape hovered above it, her flickering form anchored by something unseen. The ground rumbled as the whispers crescendoed, a chaotic symphony enveloping him. He could feel choices rippling through the air, each more dangerous than the last. "Now, decide," the deep hissing voice echoed, mocking him. In just a heartbeat, everyone around him fell silent, and he knew he stood at a brink, a precipice of consequence.
What?
Fate awaited him if he chose to confront the darkness. But as he stepped closer, tendrils of shadow reached out, caressing his leg like a starving lover. Desperation clawed at him. Did he dare? Did he have a choice? The truth loomed just beyond the reach of his understanding, and he could sense that uncovering it meant releasing sacrifices he never imagined. "What are you willing to trade?" The whispers slithered back. And in that moment of dread, the air shimmered with suspense as he raised his gaze to the altar. Did he dare reach for the girl? Or would the shadows consume him whole? A heartbeat later, everything changed. But the question remained, what would he sacrifice to unlock the secrets of the night? The moment hung heavy in the air, as if the forest itself had drawn a breath, fixing its gaze upon him. The girl hovered just above the altar, and he could see the desperation in her flickering form. It was as if she was both here and not here, trapped and free all at once. His heart raced, torn between the urge to flee and the instinct to aid. "Find me," her voice echoed again, a lifeline threaded through that darkness. It begged him to confront his fears, to step into the abyss. But would it mean salvation or doom? He glanced down at the shadows lapping at his feet. They whispered promises of power, of knowledge, of things beyond his understanding. But this wasn't some fairy tale. The price would be steep, and he could feel it in his bones. "Make a choice," the grotesque figure taunted from behind him. Its presence loomed, a reminder that time was not on his side. Every second felt like a chisel, carving away at his resolve. "What will you give?" The shadows hissed, their voices swirling like a dark fog. He could feel them tugging at his thoughts, dredging up hidden regrets and fears. He swallowed hard. "I'll do anything," he rasped, but even as the words left his mouth, he felt the weight of the promise. What had he just pledged? Suddenly, the altar pulsed with a sickly light, illuminating the girl's face. She looked so vulnerable, so infinitely fragile. He had to reach her. The monster's laughter echoed, a chilling sound that sent a shiver down his spine. You think yourself noble? It sneered. Fools always think they have a choice. With grim determination, he plunged forward, arms outstretched. He could feel the shadows wrapping tighter, their cold fingers grazing his skin, binding him.
No,
He shouted, clenching his fists. I refuse to be trapped. Just then, the air shimmered, and a deep rumble rolled through the ground. A crack formed, splitting the altar in two. The girl's face was a mask of terror, and his heart pounded as he fought against the ropes of darkness.
hold on.
He yelled, but she wasn't reaching for him, no. She was staring past him, wide-eyed. A tide of shadows erupted from all directions, churning like a living wave, drawn to the altar's disturbance. The darkness was alive, and it roared, a sound that rattled him to his core. He felt his body pulled in every direction, the shadows an insatiable beast eager to consume him.
Fool.
The creature behind him howled, the amusement drained from its voice. You have awakened something far greater than you can imagine. He closed his eyes, snapping his mind to the memories of laughter, warmth, that fleeting joy he felt before all this horror began. The cost of revealing these secrets was more than he could bear. But in a split second, he decided he would fight. He would break the cycle. With every ounce of his strength, he ripped away from the shadow's grasp. As the unnerving wave crashed toward him, he focused on the girl. I'm coming. His voice rang out, a beacon in the cacophony. He had to save her. An explosive blast of energy surged through him, igniting a primal force. The shadows recoiled, hissing, as he stepped into the void, colors and lights swirling around him. He reached out, connecting with hers just as the darkness surged once more. That one heartbeat. Everything went white, and then silence fell. He opened his eyes to find himself on the altar. The whispers now turned to a low hum. The girl was gone. The shadows pulsed ominously around him, waiting hungry. The forest stood still, holding its breath once more. What have you done? The void hissed. The weight of his choice crashed over him like a tidal wave. He was alone. But as he surveyed the dark woods, a shadow flickered, tugging at something deep within him. Hope? Regret? Both. Find me, that haunting echo danced through the air, leading him into the growing darkness yet again. What would he discover next? And could he undo what he had unleashed? The answers loomed ahead, just out of reach, and he had a decision to make again. The cold air seeped into his bones, a chill that twisted deep inside him. He stood alone on the altar, the ominous hum of the shadows wrapping around him like a shroud, mocking his desperation. The forest loomed close, its ancient trees silent witnesses to his fate. Each whispered rustle felt like a taunt, another reminder of the girl who had vanished into the darkness. Find me, the voice continued to echo, pulling him with an irresistible force. What did it mean? Did she want him to seek her out, or was this a trap? The uncertainty twisted like a knife in his gut. He looked around frantically, his breaths becoming shallow as panic gripped him. The shadows danced at the edges of his vision, flickering and diving back into the underbrush like frightened creatures. He had felt them before, their tendrils reaching out, trying to consume him. Could they lead him to her? Or would they swallow him whole? Moving hesitantly, he matched the rhythm of the whispers, letting them guide his steps into the dark. What's down here? He wondered aloud, his own voice something foreign in the vast silence. Each footfall felt like a declaration, a challenge to the darkness. His heart pounded in response, a staccato beat that matched his rising apprehension. The deeper he wound through the trees, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. He could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in around him. The laughter of the grotesque figure reverberated through his mind, its twisted joy at his suffering echoing back, fueling his dread. Then he saw a flicker of light cutting through the obscurity ahead. His pulse quickened. Could it be her? The urge to rush forward surged, but he hesitated, hesitant to ignite the shadows further. Show yourself, he barked, the challenge tremoring in the air. The figure in the light was too elusive, a mirage that shimmered and shifted. A faint gasp escaped, drawing him in like a thread weaving tight around his heart. "Please," it whimpered, each syllable trembling with fear. "Where are you?" he shouted, desperation leaking into his voice. The light flickered again and darkened. The shadows laughed, a chilling chorus that slithered into his mind, reminding him of the stakes at play. Suddenly, an overwhelming wave of emotion crashed through him. Was that hope or despair? He had to break through. He wanted to reach her more than anything. Clenching his fists, he dared another step forward, feeling the ground tremble beneath him.
Who are you?
The question slipped out before he could stop it, a plea mingled with a prayer. In response, the ground shook violently, branches cracked above him, and the sanctuary of the forest shifted disturbingly. The shadows writhed, rebelling against the sudden influx of energy. In their fury, tendrils lashed out, trying to ensnare him once more, pulling at his jacket, coiling around his legs.
No.
He cried out, fighting against the onslaught. He grabbed at the closest tree, its bark biting into his palms as he strained back against the pull. "I want to give in." With his every ounce of strength, he broke free, falling forward into the pulsating light. It enveloped him in warmth, a stark contrast to the consuming coldness behind. In that instant his mind raced. He had sacrificed everything to save her, but was this light filled with salvation, or yet another curse? "Find me," the voice lingered, and suddenly he understood. It wasn't just about finding the girl. It was about finding himself amidst the chaos. As he steadied himself against the light, it grew dimmer, and he saw the looming figure again, emerging like a specter from the shadows behind him. Its eyes gleamed with malice, a promise of darkness lurking in its intent. "You've only begun to awaken the true horrors," it taunted, voice echoing through the thrum of silence, sending shivers down his spine. Panic bubbled in his throat as he stared into those hungry eyes. Would he ever truly escape? The ground shook once more, and the darkness swelled, threatening to swallow him whole again. His instincts screamed to run. But as he hovered at the edge of despair, that tiny flicker of hope sparked again. "I will find you," he yelled into the shadows, defiance pounding in his chest. But as he turned, he saw the familiar glimmer slip away. Just when he thought things might be shifting, everything he believed was collapsing. He stood alone, an island of uncertainty in a sea of darkness. What would happen if he couldn't keep his promise? What new horror awaited him next? The forest held its breath, and he pressed on into the unknown, the fear swelling in his heart stronger than ever. The light faded quickly, revealing a terrifying void where shadows thrived. He stumbled forward, disoriented. Each snap of a branch felt like a gunshot in the silent night. What have I done? The weight of his own words crushed him. The sinister figure still lingered in the shadows, its presence coaxing his heartbeat into a frantic race. "You're too late," it sneered, a fog of amusement curling around its dark voice. "Shut up," he roared, desperation lacing his tone. With every ounce of energy, he fought the creeping dread that threatened to consume him. This was a battle for survival. He pressed on, searching for the essence of that flickering light, believing that would lead him to her. The whispers began to swirl around him again, merging into a cacophony of voices. "Help me," they cried, grief and terror intertwining. "Find me before it's too late." The atmosphere thickened, a smothering blanket that weighed him down. He faltered, struggling against the darkness, stretched thin between courage and despair. The promises of salvation danced just out of reach, like a mirage shimmering on a horizon that never drew closer. Then came a flash, a glimpse of something bright, a vivid glow that pierced the shadows ahead. He reached out instinctively, his fingers grasping for hope. "I'm coming." But as he focused on the light, the darkness surged to snatch it away, sweeping through the forest like a living entity. Tendrils lashed at him, and he could feel icy hands closing in. Each time he thought he'd found her, it dashed his hopes into the churning abyss. "Please," he gasped, fighting the grip of the shadows. Just then, He felt a pull on his heart, a connection strong and undeniable. I know you're here. In a moment of clarity, he realized the shadows were afraid of the light. They avoided it, as if it might expose their malice. He drew a deep breath, an insistent will igniting within him. He would not back down. With fierce determination, he summoned all the strength he had left. You cannot take her from me, he shouted, voice echoing through the trees, reverberating against the ground. The shadows recoiled briefly, a shiver of uncertainty rippling through them. Rushing forward, he fought through the dark, reaching for the illuminating glow that teased him closer. His fingers brushed against a cool surface, breaking through the darkness. The light sparkled like stars all around him, and then he heard it again, that soft whimper. Help me, it sounded so near, so real. He sprinted toward it, propelled by raw emotion. But as he drew closer, a piercing shriek erupted from the shadows.
Fool.
It bellowed. You think you can save her? No. I will, he screamed, charging blindly into the brilliance. But the shadows responded, creeping to reclaim him, long fingers curling around his legs, clutching at his heart. He stood at the crossroads, to fight or to succumb to fear. He could feel the tug-of-war within a darkness threatening to pull him back to despair, while the blinding light promised hope and salvation. The pressure mounted as a figure emerged from the light, a face forming through the glimmering haze. Was it her? Could it be? His heart raced. He couldn't let this chance slip away.
Hold on,
he called out, but the light dimmed. As his words echoed into the void, the shadows began drawing tighter, their laughter filling his ears. He had a choice to make, but what if he made the wrong one? As darkness closed in, he felt the warmth of the light vanish, leaving him alone again, battling the unseen horrors that whispered around him. Would his resolve endure, or would he become just another lost soul swallowed by secrets of the shadows? The forest trembled under their thrumming heartbeat, and every flicker of hope seemed to push him further into uncertainty. Behind him, the haunting laughter echoed anew. What if the darkness had plans of its own? His breath caught in his throat, the answer lurking somewhere deep in the whispering trees. The shadows tightened their grip, a chilling embrace that stole the breath from his lungs. He could hear the darkness laughing, reveling in his despair. Each flicker of hope paled against the overwhelming blackness that engulfed him. Suddenly, a surge of adrenaline coursed through his veins. Was that her voice again? Help me. It was closer this time, a twinge of urgency injecting life into his fading will. The shriek from the shadows faded, replaced by a sound that sent shivers down his spine. A voice, soft yet laden with fear, would not let him go. Stay away from her, he shouted, spitting the words into the night like bullets. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if stung by the conviction in his voice. He took a tentative step forward, heart hammering as he fought the instinct to run. Can you hear me? He pleaded into the captivating light. I'm coming. The forest grew eerily quiet, the rustling leaves bridging the silence, anticipating his next move. Each step felt more significant than the last, steeped in a blend of courage and uncertainty. With every inch forward, the light pulsed, wrapping around him like a guarded shield. But he could feel the dark entities lurking just beyond its reach, sharpening their claws at the edges of his consciousness. You're so naive, the sinister figure mocked, its voice slithering through the air like a serpent. You haven't the slightest idea what you're stepping into. Ignoring the taunts, he forced himself to dwell on the light, a beacon in the chaos, stronger than the all-consuming fear. I want to let them take you, he shouted again, his voice unwavering, energized by some unknown force. As he neared the source, he felt the warmth of a small hand brush against his. It was fleeting, barely there, but it left a fiery trail on his skin.
Who are you?
The voice quivered, trembling with both dread and anticipation. Why are you here? He chuckled softly through his fear, trying to soothe her. I'm looking for you. I want to let them win. Suddenly, the ground beneath him trembled like a living beast roused from slumber. The shadows hissed angrily, and the darkness bulged around him like a wave, threatening to swallow everything whole. Panic surged in his heart. Could he really save her? Or was this a fool's errand?
Run.
He urged the voice. But the pulsing light began to wane, flickering as if responding to his growing doubt. He stumbled, losing his footing, and the darkness surged forward, eager to reclaim him, to twist his heart into knots of despair. "No!" he yelled, casting aside all doubt. He fell to his knees, hands pressed against the cold earth. The shadows were whispering, promising safety if he would only surrender. But something inside him twisted in rebellion. As if sensing his resolve, the flickering light erupted with renewed vigor, illuminating the small clearing where he now knelt. "You have to believe," he cried, a plea to both the shadows and the light. The voices around him grew louder, their urgency merging in a haunting chorus. "Help us, before it's too late." A rush of energy filled him, stronger than any fear he had ever known. He shot back up, heart racing with unbridled determination. "I will fight," he echoed, barely recognizing his own voice. The shadows seemed to falter, uncertainty rippling through their gnarled forms. Then he saw her, a small figure standing just within the glow, eyes wide with terror, but filled with hope. "Help me," she cried, extending her hand fearfully into the light's embrace. And that instant, he felt as if he were standing on the precipice of destiny. Success was so close, yet the danger loomed larger than ever. Would he reach her in time? But amidst the chaos of voices, one stood out, a chilling whisper that promised to end it all. "You think you can save her?" The very soul of the forest seemed to shudder, the ground trembling beneath their feet, blurring the line between light and dark. As he took a step forward, the shadows wove themselves tighter around him. What if saving her meant losing himself? As silence fell, thickening the air, the answer loomed ominously overhead. Would he be brave enough to grasp the light, or would he be swallowed whole by the shadows waiting to devour him? His heart lurched as he pushed through the impending darkness, the pulsing flicker of light beckoning him forward, casting a hope that felt both fragile and fierce. The girl's eyes seemed to capture all the stars of the universe, glimmering with unspoken fears and untold stories. Every instinct screamed at him to take her hand, to pull her away from the abyss that was clawing at the edges of her being.
"Just hold on,"
he shouted, desperation lacing every syllable. Each move he made was measured and trembling, the shadows surging forward as if on cue, eager to reclaim their prey. The air crackled with electric tension, alive, dangerous, a volatile mix of dread and the will to fight. But as he stepped closer, the grasp of shadows began to creep up his legs, icy fingers clawing up his body, threatening to root him to the spot. The whispers returned, a cacophony drowning out his thoughts. "You're wasting your time," they hissed. "You'll never win."
"No."
He shook his head, his voice rising above the chaos, strong and unwavering. "I want to give in to you." The light pulsed again, responding to his fierce refusal, humming louder, reaching out like an arm extending through dark waters to pull him onward. The girl's hand still hovered, just out of his reach. "You can do it," she called, her voice a trembling tether between him and defeat. Each word ignited a flicker of courage, pushing him to dig deeper. He could not fail her. "Don't let them take me." With a surge of adrenaline that felt like fire racing through his veins, he lunged forward, snatching her hand as the darkness shrieked in outrage. Instantly, warmth enveloped them both, a protective dome of light expanding as the shadows recoiled in confusion. "Let us go," he shouted, pulling her towards the sanctuary of brightness. The forest around them quaked, trees bending as if to witness the battle, the very ground beneath their feet morphing chaotically. But with their hands clasped, they began to move, the light growing even stronger, illuminating a path that cut through the relentless night.
"Do you see it?"
she breathed, the wonder crackling in her voice, her eyes wide with awe. "It's so beautiful." The light momentarily brightened, rekindling flickers of hope in his heart. Was this the turn he had been yearning for, a shining path through the darkness? But then they stumbled into a growing shadow, a clump where the light flickered weakly, dimmed by the enormity of their fears. The whispers surged back, sonorous and ghastly. "You cannot escape, you belong to us now." He squeezed her hand tighter, feeling the warmth of her spirit battling against the encroaching cold.
No.
"We won't let you take us." Suddenly, the shadows coalesced violently, morphing into a once familiar figure, cloaked in regret and sorrow. "You think you can save her?" It echoed, its voice twisted with familiarity. "You will lose your way, you will lose everything." His breath hitched in his throat. It was someone he had loved, someone he had lost. Anguish splintered through him, threatening to pull him under again. The girl beside him gasped. "Why does it look like that? What does it want?"
Just hold on.
He urged her, anchoring himself even tighter to their glimmering hope, battling against the memories flooding in like a storm. As the figure advanced with ghostly fury, shadows swirling like ink around water, he stood still, straining against the tidal pull of despair, determination burning anew. "I will not fail you. I will not be fooled by your tricks." With every ounce of his being, he plunged forward once again, the light brightening further, illuminating the dark secrets embedded deep within the forest's heart. But what awaited them in the heart of the darkness? Did he truly have the power to fight against both the shadows and his own memories? And as the darkness roared, the echoes of reality twisted, the answer hung heavy in the air. Was there a line he could cross that would seal their fate forever? The darkness howled, a wild beast enraged by defiance. Shadows lunged at him, each whisper more menacing than the last. "You'll regret this," they hissed, their chilly breath flooding the space between them. He could feel the pull of the figure in front of him, a ghostly apparition wrapped in lost memories. Rage boiled in his blood. "You don't scare me," he shouted, forcing the words through gritted teeth. The girl's grip felt steady in his hand, her warmth radiating even as the shadows snaked around him. "Stay strong," she cried, her voice like a lifeline as they advanced together. The golden light continued to pulse, fighting back with fierce determination, illuminating the path of the unknown ahead. They pressed on, hurtling through the forest. Each step took them deeper into the heart of terror, yet every fleeting moment of light clawed desperately at the suffocating darkness that hung above them like a storm cloud, heavy and menacing. Then, without warning, the ground beneath him shifted. He stumbled. They were circling around a gnarled oak, its gnarled roots twisting like serpents. The shadows danced wildly, swirling around the ancient trunk, whispering seductive lies of despair. "You can't change the past," the voice teased, sounding eerily familiar. "She will always be lost. You will always be alone." He gritted his teeth, forcing the words out as he pulled the girl closer. "We're not done fighting. I won't let you take her." Suddenly, the girl stopped, her eyes darting around. "What is that? It feels different." A palpable shift rippled through the air, and a crack split the silence, like thunder. The shadows hesitated. The girl's clarity startled him.
Look.
She pointed, her expression a mixture of fear and fascination. Ahead, in the dim light, shapes began to form, illuminated silhouettes emerging from the ground, faces of lost souls, each one a sliver of pain and longing. They reached out, fingers trembling, mouths opening in silent cries. "Help us," they mouthed, their voices mere echoes of anguish. His chest tightened. How could he help them when he could barely keep himself afloat? "I can't," he shouted, desperation creeping in. But the girl squeezed his hand gently, her eyes steady and full of resolve. "We have to, or we're no better than them." Her words struck him like a falling star igniting a dying ember. They lit a fire inside him, an urgency, a fierce determination to confront not just the darkness around them, but the pain within them. "Listen to me," he commanded, channeling every ounce of power through their clasped hands. "We are here to bring light, to remind you that you're not forgotten." The shadows recoiled, the figures fading slightly as a warm glow cascaded around them. But reality shattered when he looked back at the girl. A horror washed over him, her face began to weaken. No, please.
Not now.
He urged, panic flooding through him.
Hold on.
She whispered, her strength waning, the golden light dimming further as if their very hope was being snuffed out. He turned. The twisted figure was charging again, growing bolder, its eyes burning with a desire to reclaim what was lost. You cannot fight what is already lost. The very earth beneath them trembled, shaking the foundations of their resolve.
Fight.
He shouted, heart pounding. Fight with me. The weight of despair threatened to drown them, claws digging deeper. And standing there, heart on fire, he could feel it a thin line, fragmented but pulsing with possibility. What if this was their moment? What if he knew? A crystalline voice broke through the chaos. We are your memories. We are your choices. It is time to decide. As the shadows lunged again, he realized the truth. They were more than attackers. They were mirrors. To survive, he must confront what had been buried deep within. And as he steeled himself for the fight of his life, the echoes deep within roared back. Could the next memory awaken the courage needed to battle this darkness? Would the truth set them free, or seal their fate forever? The weight of tension hung in the air, thick enough to choke on. He stood at the edge of the abyss, shadows swirling like hungry beasts around him and the girl. Her eyes shone with a flicker of hope, but could he anchor them both against the storm? Something in that moment shattered his hesitance. Enough! He bellowed, the sound reverberating through the forest, dispelling the whispers momentarily. You're wrong. I won to surrender. The old figure standing in shadow shrieked with mockery. You think you can change your fate? You are lost.
No.
He exploded, his heart roaring defiantly. I am not lost. We are not lost. He intensively focused on the girl. They had come too far. Would he let her go, too?
No, he had to believe.
He felt the light flaring in their joined hands, warmth and power rising through him. Believe, he shouted, channeling every inch of his desperation into a rallying cry. We are not alone. Together. The ground trembled as the shadows twisted, but they pushed through, precariously inching forward. The shadows shattered slightly, allowing flickers of light to break through, offering glimmers of sanctuary. Each step was a battle, but hope surged alongside him, collective memories coming alive. Laughter.
Warmth.
Unity coursed through his heart. With a final surge of courage that was almost a scream, he made one last grab for the girl, pulling her close as a sudden burst of brilliant light erupted from their clasped hands, a pulse of hope that sent the shadows howling into retreat. The echoes of lost souls pleaded for assistance, but he held his stance.
Look.
We're free. We choose not to dwell. The figures began to shift back, retreating into the dark corners of the clearing, their eyes full of sorrow now tinged with a glimmer of hope. It was clear. They had been waiting on memories, love, and the chance for redemption. Time to come home, he called out, guiding their spirits with the strength of his voice. You are not forgotten. You will shine again. Suddenly, light burst through the darkness, illuminating more than just the glade. It flooded the souls, washing over them, each face reflecting not fear, but a serene acceptance. He could feel the girl's hand warm and steady. They were not alone. The shadows began to dissipate entirely, fading like lingering smoke. The grotesque figure melted away, a mere remnant of a nightmare. In the swell of light, the girl looked up at him. You saved me. His heart was racing. They did it together. Yes, he whispered breathlessly. And you've saved us all. As the last vestiges of darkness cleared, he could finally see the forest in daylight's embrace. Streams sparkled. Birds began to sing, filling the air with hope. A profound silence followed. They had faced the shadows and emerged. The girl smiled, her essence radiating pure joy. But then, a shadow of solemnity touched her brow. I must go now. My time is up.
Wait.
He gasped, clinging to the glimmer of connection. The waves of realization crashing down. What does that mean? Where will you go? Remember me. I will always be with you. In light and in shadows, she murmured, a flicker of light enveloping her. She stepped back, slowly fading, but her voice echoed endlessly in the clearing. You found me. Now find others. Make the world brighter. And just like that, she vanished from his sight, the gentle warmth lingering, coaxing him forward. He took a deep breath, surveying the forest now bathed in light. It sparkled with new life. Each tree blossomed. The colors were more vibrant than ever. Hope threaded through him like an electric pulse, igniting something greater. Thank you, he whispered. As he stepped away from the altar, he felt different, lighter. There was a purpose rising within him, a responsibility to carry forward. The forest that had once consumed him now felt like home, a place of beginnings, not ends. He walked back toward Maplewood, each step resolved. The whispers, the shadows, they were part of him now, but he would wield them, not be bound by them. The stories of the lost would inspire him to keep searching, to heal the wounds around him. Together, they would emerge into the light. Together, they would not be forgotten. And as he felt the sun warm his face, he knew he was ready to be the beacon for anyone still lost in darkness. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.